Russia and Saudi Arabia's devious plan to F the 2024 election on Trump's behalf, ? And really, the point that I'm making is that both Russia and Saudi Arabia, or more specifically, both Putin and MBS, are basically desperate for Trump to get back into office. Putin needs Trump back in office so that he can finish the job in Ukraine to cut off American aid. What we saw back in 1973 was that when we supported Israel in the Arab-Israeli, or actually it was Israel and Egypt, when that conflict, I think that was the Six-Day War, as I recall, the Gulf states, the Arab states said, okay, that's it, no more oil for the United States. And they cut off our oil supplies, and instantly our economy crashed. We had miles-long lines to get gas at gas stations. The price of gas spiked. And, it damaged the economy really badly. Richard Nixon was president at the time, and he had a solution to this. And his solution was to ban the export from the United States of oil produced in the United States. In other words, keep our energy here. Domestic energy for domestic consumption. And that law, which was put on the books in '73, stayed on the books until 2015. What had happened was in 2013 and 2014, well, let me back up a little bit. Way back in 2006, George W. Bush gave a speech in which he pointed out that we were importing 60% of the oil we used. That was also around the time that fracking and slant drilling became widespread and popular. They were legalized by the Bush administration. And they made it possible to produce a lot more oil really, really quickly. So in 2006, we were importing 60% of our oil, according to Bush. By 2014, Barack Obama was giving a speech saying, hey, we're just about energy independent here, words to that effect. And by 2015, we actually were. We could have just cut off all foreign oil imported into the United States at that point in 2015 and said, we're just going to run on our own oil, and we would have been fine. So, but the oil industry kind of was seeing this coming, and what they understood was that if the United States uses only American-made oil, that decouples us from the worldwide oil supply, from the worldwide oil prices. The way the scam works right now is that the oil companies drill the oil in the United States. Their cost of production is $20, $30, in some cases as much as $40 a barrel, but it's not a lot. And some new wells, it's as little as $10 a barrel. Very low production costs. And then they sell that oil overseas for $50, $60, $70, $80, whatever the spot price is, whatever the prevailing prices are. They're around $80 a barrel, I believe, right now. So they make a profit on oil drilled in the United States, and then they buy oil from overseas, from Saudi Arabia and a few other countries, but principally Saudi Arabia, and import it into the United States and mark that up as well. So by keeping us tied into the international oil price, what happens is if Saudi Arabia or Russia decides to jack up oil prices by cutting production, which, by the way, they just did, both those countries, and they did back in 2022, early in the year, in anticipation of the 2022 elections. Remember the $5 gallon, more than $5 gallon, in some cases even $6 a gallon gasoline in 2022, and all those stickers of Joe Biden pointing, and the headlines say, "I did this," that people were putting on gas pumps. Well, they're preparing to do that again. So what I'm proposing, and it's not just me, Ed Markey actually, and several members of the House as well, Senator Ed Markey, Massachusetts, just introduced legislation into the House and the Senate to go back to Nixon's plan. Nixon got this right in 1973. Stop the export of American oil. We are producing enough oil to satisfy all our needs, and yet we are exporting our oil because it's profitable for the oil companies. In fact, they just had their most profitable year in the history of the world last year. And this year probably won't be that much different. So ban the export. Now, the legislation that Markey and his colleagues in the House are proposing, which actually has a specific name. Let me get that for you. It's the Ban Fossil Fuel Exports Act. And Adriano Espaillat is the leader in the House of Representatives, along with Ed Markey in the Senate. The Ban Fossil Fuel Exports Act probably, almost certainly, would not pass the House of Representatives. Kevin McCarthy is not going to advocate for a bill that's going to hurt Russia or Saudi Arabia. He's got, a Putin contingent within the GOP. There's a Putin caucus of Republicans in the House of Representatives, and they're not going to go along with this. And, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Matt Gaetzes, the ones who don't want any more aid to Ukraine, who basically want to do whatever Putin tells them to do. So, if this isn't going to happen, then what do we do? Well, there's a plan B. There's another option. And I'm suggesting that this is something that President Biden should do. And that is that given that the climate emergency is costing the United States hundreds of billions of dollars and hundreds of lives, arguably thousands of lives every year. The damage done by tornadoes and floods and hurricanes and drought and, this whole spectrum of weather weirdness that we're experiencing as a result of global warming, which is the result of fossil fuel production, that the president could simply declare a climate emergency and then by executive order, based on that declaration, and he doesn't need Congress, and there's nothing Republicans can do to stop him, and then he could issue an executive order banning further export of oil from the United States. I think this is a great idea. The Citizen.org just published a lengthy piece about this, in which they were arguing that we should be doing this. I mean, that this is something that we really need to be doing right now. And Citizen.org. And what they noted was that for crude oil, about 29% of U.S. production in the first 6 months of last year was exported. That was more than double what was exported in 2017 and quadruple what was exported in 2016. In other words, our exports are exploding right now. And the problem with that is that it's driving up oil prices here in the United States, which I think, like I said, I think this is the plan. I think that the oil industry executives don't like Biden in the White House either. They want Trump back in the White House, just like Mohammed bin Salman does, just like Putin does. And the way to stop these guys, to essentially kneecap all this, is to ban the export of crude oil. I realize it's not a hot or sexy topic, but I think it's important. And I think it's one of those things that we need to talk about. So anyhow, we'll continue with the debt ceiling and book banning in Florida and whatever's on your mind right after this.